Good morning, everyone. Welcome. It's FPC Radio Live. It's Friday, June 9th. That's 6/9 for all you immature adults out there. I include myself as part of that group, John. Because every time I hear that, I chuckle. I'm kind of like Gronk, whatever. I'm never going to get over it. Happy 6/9 to everyone out there. And happy, hey, we might have a Stanley Cup final series after all this because the Florida Panthers won, just like they do most often in the playoffs, and that is in overtime. And we're going to get to that with Mr. Jim Behringer here in a few minutes. But before we get to that, though, two things. First off, the Nuggets. They're going to win tonight, right? Or tomorrow, or whatever it is.
This is the one time in the finals where they only have a day off in between games because there's no travel. So, yeah, they're playing tonight, and then Game 5 will be Monday. Yeah, you would think that the Nuggets will win because if they just put forth a good, solid effort, they should win. But, I thought that when Miami played Milwaukee or when they played the Celtics, and sometimes those teams faded a little bit. Denver does seem to be more focused than the Celtics or Milwaukee. So, yeah, I would expect them to win tonight. But the difference between 3-1 and 2-2 is monumental. If it's 3-1, start fitting them for their ring. If it's 2-2, you're scratching your head going, how the hell is Miami in this thing? And it's a best of three at that point against a team like Miami that doesn't really fare anyone.
Yeah, because, it's shaping up right now. It's like if Miami wins this one, say it's a close one, it's like the point differential is going to be heavily in favor of Denver because, Miami wins close. And I personally don't think Miami is – I think you're going to see something similar to what we saw in Game 3. I think Denver got surprised in Game 2, a little bit unfocused. Like I said, they hadn't lost a home game since March 30th or something like that. So, they were quote unquote due, I guess. I don't know. Miami's just not getting enough from their best players. And Denver, conversely, is. And I think that's the biggest difference because, you can get all the Max Strus shots and Gabe Vincent and Duncan Robinson, all that stuff. That's great and all. And those are great moments. But you can't be counting on them to carry this team. And, quite frankly, Jimmy and Bam haven't been good enough. Certainly since the first few games of the Celtics series.
And the lack of efficiency, right? The other night they had 50 points combined, 21 of 45. That's 40%. That's not good enough. You have to be better than that. You have to be efficient, like the two top players for Denver, Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, have shot over 50% in this series, and that's a big difference. Oh yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. So, like I said, I expect Denver to win again tonight, just because, again, there's. I look at the Game 2 win for Miami, and I've said it multiple times. They needed a franchise record number of threes to win by just 3. And I just don't see that as a sustainable way of playing basketball against this Denver Nuggets team, who's just better at this point. So, like I said, we're going to get to hockey in just a minute because that was an exciting game yesterday. But DeAndre Hopkins is making his world tour, so to speak, or basically Tennessee to now New England, as he's set to visit the Patriots later, or I believe next week is what the report said. I'm not surprised because the Patriots have been kind of mentioned among the key teams really interested. You have that classic Belichick loves them dynamic. Obviously the Bill O'Brien situation was kind of looming. Does he want to go back and play for the guy that, he didn't necessarily get along with too well when he was with Houston? But, John, this could be a very big move for a team like the Patriots, who are quite forgotten right now, which is fine and probably appropriate because, look, it's right now it's these other teams that are making moves and making headlines. Miami is the next big thing in the AFC East. Aaron Rodgers is with the Jets. The Bills are the Bills, but you add DeAndre Hopkins to this offense. They already have a pretty good defense. They've had a pretty good defense since Tom Brady left. They just obviously haven't had the quarterback level of play. Now, that's the big thing, John. How do you improve Mac Jones's level of play?
Well, he has to be more consistent, sure, but you get some really good talent around him, just like the Buffalo Bills did with Josh Allen, who in year 3 was paired up with Stephon Diggs. And what happened, John? It took off. He took off. I mean, obviously, the talent of Stephon Diggs helps. The quarterback has to improve as well. And again, I think the most important thing for the Patriots and really kind of like the wild card in the AFC is how good is Mac Jones going to be? If he's approaching a top 10 quarterback in terms of production, it's not terribly far off, then Patriots going to be a pretty darn good team.
Well, they can be better than they were a year ago and not win that many more games because we know how difficult the schedule is. But just getting Bill O'Brien as an offensive coordinator, replacing Matt Patricia, that's an upgrade. You would expect that the offensive line will perform better because that's something that Mac Jones needs. Look, every quarterback needs their offensive line to help protect them. I think Mike Gesicki is an upgrade at tight end. Juju Smith-Schuster, a little bit different than Jacoby Myers. But obviously, DeAndre Hopkins is a guy who can come in and contribute. I think he's a couple of years past his prime.
Oh, sure.
I think when Diggs went to Buffalo, he's right in his prime. I think DeAndre Hopkins is past his prime, but he's still a guy who can do a lot of things on the football field. He's just going to go where the money is, right? So if Tennessee works him out, what do they offer him? We'll see. Same thing with the Patriots, because if he really wanted to go to a place to win a Super Bowl, he'd be going either to Kansas City, Buffalo, or one of those types of teams. So he's looking for the most amount of money. Is Bill Belichick going to offer him that? I mean, people have made a comparison to Chad Ochocinco. When Ochocinco came 11, 12 years ago, it was for $1 million. I think DeAndre Hopkins is looking for closer to 12, 13 million, or at least something close to what Odell Beckham Jr. got with the Baltimore Ravens.
And look, the Patriots can afford it too. I mean, they have cap space to do it. And, you know, Joel brings up a good point on that in the chat room. I mean, Juju is a guy that comes in and creates yak. You know, that's something the Patriots have been sorely lacking. And look, look at all the successful teams in the league. It's not a coincidence that they're often at the top of the list when it comes to yards after the catch, because that's just how the game is played now, John. It's again, you look at the top. Well, you have Kansas City, you have San Francisco, you have Buffalo, and it's like, wow, surprise, surprise. These are the teams that are really good right now. So, you know, you bring in a guy like DeAndre Hopkins, and yeah, he's not the prime wide receiver he once was, but all of a sudden that opens up more for Juju and the tight ends and the other players, the running backs, everything like that. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I think the whole Bill O'Brien dynamic isn't necessarily that big of a deal. I think it's look, these people are professionals, and we've seen far worse. I mean, like I said, Jamie Collins is getting ready to return for like a 5th tour of duty with the Patriots, and that was a guy who was traded out of spite to the Cleveland Browns. So trust me, you can overcome these situations over time, like if you had a bad relationship or bad moments with someone. But anyways, we'll talk more about that next week. Obviously, we're going to start getting more and more into football just because, again, the training camp is right around the corner. But for now, we are talking primarily NBA and, of course, the Stanley Cup final. And with that said, of course, we're going to welcome in Mr. Jim Behringer, voice of Full Press Hockey and the host of I mean, I can't even count that many shows on our network. So, Jim, good morning. And I got to ask you, we talked about it, or you and Chris talked about it yesterday in the Full Press Hockey show. And I can't remember who made the comment, but but essentially it may not matter if Florida wins in Game 3 or not. The series is still likely over. Do you still agree with that statement, or do you think Florida maybe pulled some of that momentum in their direction last night?
I think it's still Vegas' series to lose. I still think they're the better team. Outside of a couple lapses in the third period, I thought they were really good defensively. I think what I saw it early on, and I think we're gonna see what team can overcome these breaks faster in games, because the 2 days off with the way Vegas played in Game 2 really hurt them early. The power play was going. I mean, look, the undisciplined play by Florida has to stop if they want any chance, because, look, the hockey gods were on their side in overtime. That was a horrible penalty. at the end of the third period, you know, the player's trying to jump and the skates clip and they call it a trip, and that's a horrible call. You can't make that call in the Stanley Cup final. Luckily, the hockey gods were on their side and they score. But yeah, I mean, look, Florida's regained some of the momentum. Bobrovsky's back in the zone. What's going to happen now in game 4? Are the Vegas players going to get frustrated? But they had a lot of good looks. But when Bobrovsky's playing like that, he's hard to beat. And that's the guy that we saw through the first 3 rounds, not the guy we saw in the first 2 games.
Yeah, and I think that's really the biggest takeaway out of this is, like, if you're Vegas, you just don't want to run into a hot goaltender. I mean, I know we say it all the time, and it's like, oh, you don't want to do this, and they're like, no. The reality of it is a one single player in this great team sport that is hockey can shift an entire series. I mean, you could be playing poorly, undisciplined, poorly defensively, but none of that matters if you cannot get a puck past Sergei Bobrovsky. And I think that's the biggest concern for Vegas because, like you said, I think they dictated much of the play. I think they played fairly well. I mean, it was a bad penalty at the end of the game that obviously led us to the situation what we're at. But at the bottom line is they did all those things and they still lost. Why? Well, because they only could score twice. And they had... Look, they didn't have a lot of shots. I think this was a lower shot total game than I think probably the average was. I think at one point it was like, 30-22. So, it wasn't terribly, at least the last I checked. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But there were opportunities and they just couldn't get the puck past Sergei Bobrovsky. I mean, there was one at one point, he had a beautiful across the ice type save. It should have been a wide open shot. I mean, I think whoever's had the puck on their stick, it kind of bounced a little bit. So like you couldn't get a clean shot off. But that's one thing. If you're Vegas, you're concerned about. Don't let Sergei Bobrovsky frustrate you because he got pulled and came back and probably played the best game of the series.
Oh, that was definitely the best game of the series for sure. By the way, Damon Severson is being traded to the Columbus Blue Jackets as part of a sign and trade with the New Jersey Devils. Just FYI, right now.
Look at that breaking news! I like it.
Severson's name has been out there. The Columbus Blue Jackets have been looking to upgrade their defense, but I mean, going back to the Stanley Cup final, Bobrovsky's been in the zone. Vegas. That's been their Achilles heel in the playoffs, their power play and going up against a hot goaltender. So it's crazy to think that this could play out again for Vegas. I think they're a little bit more mature. I think they have a little bit more firepower. Look, the turning point of this game, Vegas is up 2-1 with about 5 minutes left. It might have been a little bit more. It might have been a little bit left. 2-on-1, Jack Eichel, Ivan Barbashev. Barbashev rings the post. That puck goes in, game over. Because Florida could not generate a thing through the neutral zone, through the middle of the ice, nothing. That gave them a little bit of hope, and they were able to get a little bit of the middle of the ice in the third period because they only had 4 shots on net. Vegas gave them nothing on the power play, and then the first shot in overtime goes the way of the Florida Panthers, and we have a series.
Well, and look, I think this is true too. Now that we're obviously in the Stanley Cup Finals, this isn't our final. We're not in the first round. No one's taking Florida lightly anymore.
No.
Vegas isn't. The Bruins. I'm not saying that was the reason why they lost, but even fans were like, "Oh, they're up 3-1. They lost Game 5. No big deal. I mean, it's whatever. The Bruins will close this out." I don't think Vegas, their fans, nor the team are treating it like that. And again, I'm not saying that was 100% why the Bruins lost, but you also got to figure like, oh yeah, that those when they're up 3-1, you're kind of like, oh, okay, no, whatever. The series is over. It's no chance. But Vegas is looking at it like, okay, we saw the Bruins go up 3-1 against this team. We've seen how resilient they can be despite, again, being outplayed. So let's not screw around anymore. Let's take care of business. I think that's what's going to happen in Game 4 for Vegas because I think it's going to be another low-scoring game because, again, I think the biggest issue for them, Sergei Bobrovsky. And trust me, anyone who's ever listened to me is probably like, oh my God, he's complimenting Sergei. Yes, I am. I have no choice. Jim. I have to compliment him. He's had a great series. And quite frankly, he's the reason why that game was even close and had a chance to go to overtime. So if you're Vegas, don't take Florida lightly, and you have to hammer the puck and get the puck in the net early, I think, in game 4.
Look, it's not like they played a bad game, but they couldn't play better than they did in game 2. And again, I'll go back to the beginning. I think the 2 days off between the games really hurt Vegas more than it hurt Florida. I think Florida was able to relax a little bit, get back to their game plan, get back to themselves. Look, the big hit on Matthew Tkachuk, he really wasn't the same player. Yes, he comes up big. We're going to see how that injury affects him going forward because he really wasn't the same player after he took that big hit by Kolesar. Look, the Florida power play has to improve. They've been able to adjust throughout the games and throughout series, but right now they're 0 for 12, and Vegas really doesn't give them a lot of looks. But they're finally getting traffic in front of Aiden Hill, and you know what? That's what Vegas was doing so well against Bobrovsky. They didn't get as much traffic. I think they were trying to go too pretty like they were in the first 2 games, but that's because Florida gave them a lot. Look, Jonathan Marchessault, again, continues to be red hot. 13 goals, 13 games, 11 in his last 10. Him and Eichel now, 23 points, franchise record in the playoffs. You know, another power play goal for Marchessault. I know we don't promote it, but hammer the Marchessault power play goal until it doesn't stop because it's a lock every game. He had 2 points on the power play yesterday. So, but Vegas just has to get back to playing they played a simple game, but I think they relied too much on defense and they didn't go enough for the jugular. And they relied too much on their power play, and they thought that was what was going to get them through. Meanwhile, Florida kept the game simple, got back to their game, didn't do the extracurricular stuff that got them in trouble in the first 2 games. Yeah, you want to fight after the whistle, little things. They did the little things, but they didn't go over the line, which cost them. Again, you can talk about officiating, we talk all that stuff. It doesn't matter. Florida got the job done. Verhaeghe, the depth scoring, the guys we talked about all the time on the show, stepped up, got it. Montour, Verhaeghe, those are the guys they need to show up because Vegas is getting depth scoring.
Yeah, and look, I mean, you know, like I said before, I don't think Vegas is going to learn from the mistakes of others, and they are going to put the skate to the jugular, so to speak, and really kind of hammer down, I think, in game 4, and not really put much doubt because, like I said, if they go out and all of a sudden they can't score in the first period and they start to struggle, now it's like that doubt starts to creep in, and Florida's playing with house money at that point. You know, now you're Florida and you're like, okay, we can just do whatever we want. You know, we no one expected us to be here anyways. You know, let's just roll with it. So there is a lot of pressure on Vegas, but I think they're going to handle it pretty well. So perhaps the next time we speak on this program, Jim, we will have a Stanley Cup champion. Maybe not. We'll find out.
We're going to find out. I mean, look, game 4 Saturday. Vegas is going to have to adjust a little bit. Florida still has to adjust because I think they relied too much on Bobrovsky to keep them in this thing, and you can do that. But as Chris stated yesterday, and others have said, Florida wins games by only scoring 3 goals or 2 goals because of Bob.
Yep.
Against a team like Vegas, who's faster, who's a little bigger, who's a little bit more physical, can you continue to do that before the clock strikes midnight? That's the real question.
Yeah. I don't think so. We'll find out, though.
We'll find out.
We'll find out. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you, Jim, for joining us once again, of course. Thank you, John, for chilling in the back there while we talk hockey. And I promise we'll get some more basketball talk in next week when we start. But thank you, everyone, for listening, and enjoy your weekend. Enjoy, well, it's June, folks. It's June. It means it's almost summertime. So thank you, everyone, and we'll talk to you soon.